I so appreciate the way the School Improvement Network family has welcomed me with open arms. But I hope they realize what they've done. Because now there's a middle school teacher standing on the stage. And we tend to be as unpredictable as our students. So, since I have a reputation to protect, we are going to start in an unconventional manner, which is actually very normal in my classroom. You see, most of the students that I teach have ADHD, and I promise them that they never have to sit for more than 20 minutes. Well, you have been sitting for more than 20 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a brain break. Everybody stand up, please. You are going to take your right hand and put your thumb in the air. Take your left hand and put your index finger in the air. And when I say switch, you are going to switch. And neurons are going to fire. Ready? 1, 2, 3, switch. 1, 2, 3, switch. 1, 2, 3, switch. Fabulous. You may be seated. Did you notice how the energy level in this room changed? According to this timer, it took about 30 seconds. But you know what? That has gained me 20 more minutes of attention. Let's let our students move, and let's not forget to let our teachers move during professional development sessions also. So I had the opportunity to attend Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama last July. It's an amazing experience, and it was during that time that I realized how much time is spent on the ground training astronauts for their ultimate missions. I know this because they were going to put us in a mock mission, and they trained us for anomalies, which explains why this nice young man from NASA is strapping me into a gyrosphere. Because you see, they said an anomaly that it could occur during the mission would be an uncontrolled re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. And you can tell by the look on my face that I'm thrilled that that contraption is going to hurl me in multiple directions. Actually, I'm just praying that I not hurl on the nice young man. But you know what's interesting? Once it got started, I really enjoyed the experience. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, in education, we're experiencing a bit of an anomaly. And that anomaly is change. And some of us are frustrated because we feel like we are being hurled in multiple directions. And in some places, there is so much frustration that some teachers are ready to hit this button. And we can't let that happen because their work is too important. So our driving question for our time together this afternoon is, how can we inspire and prepare educators to successfully accomplish their teaching mission so that their students can achieve liftoff? I would like to suggest that the answer lies in professional development, and it must be effective. Professional development is most effective when it is grounded in the realities of the classroom. And this is how we do this. We show our teachers instead of just telling them. And that's what I just did for you. Because you see, in my school district, I am required to have a driving question and a key point for every single lesson that I teach. So when I go to professional development, I hope that my professional development coordinator will model that for me. She will not just tell me, Melanie, you better have that up on your smart board. She will model it during the professional development. That's what I love about PD 360. because it's proof that the strategies work in the classroom, because I can watch a video and I see it working with real kids, and I appreciate that. So if we're able to ground that professional development, we're going to be much more effective. What have we heard throughout this summit? What is the Launchpad to success? It's the relationships that we develop with our students, with our teachers, with our administrators. So that's where we're going to start today. You've all heard the quote, students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You are peeking into my middle school reading remediation classroom. Those students are there for a very specific reason. They have struggled with reading their entire lives. Many of them come from homes that are so dysfunctional, it's an amazing thing that they're even sitting there. The majority of them have ADHD and have IEP plans because they have special needs. So you better believe Melanie Park better bring her A game and develop a relationship with them first, because you know what? It's my job to take them as they come to me as sixth graders, reading some of them as beginning readers or second graders, and make sure that by the time they go to high school, they're reading at grade level. But I have to develop the relationship first. So how do I go about doing that? Well, I have an incredible support system. Because you know what? I've developed relationships with all of my colleagues. And I've done that because our principal, highlighted there in white, Mr. Kurt Grego, has made sure that relationship is a priority in our school. So we are all working together for a common cause. One of the things that we enjoy doing together is an Inference Walk. And I actually do this with my students at the beginning of the year, but you could also do it with your staff. I put up around the room all kinds of pictures from my life. And when my students walk in on the first day of school, I give them a whole stack of Post-it notes. And I say, I'm not going to tell you anything about myself. I want you to make some inferences. So based on the clues in the pictures, who do you think your teacher is? And so they walk around the room. And one of the pictures that I always put up is of me when I was a child. And it's fun to watch what they write. They say, Mrs. Park, you must have smiled as much as a little girl as you do as an adult. And you must have loved to camp, and it looks like you're happy. And Mrs. Park, do you dye your hair? Because it's blonde there. Well, I'm covering up gray. Yes, it's dyed. And so we read all those ideas. And then I'm completely honest, and I start to peel back the layers. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing there in front of my home, the summer before my kindergarten year. When my mom and dad got divorced, my mom and I didn't have anywhere to go, so we spent some time living in a tent. Over the next several years, I had to change schools 7 different times, and there were adults in my life that I should have been able to trust who hurt me terribly. So I learned an important lesson. If you withdraw and hide and refuse to make eye contact with people, you know what? They can't hurt you. And teachers would describe me as painfully shy. And they were worried that I would never amount to anything. So some of you may be asking, what takes that painfully shy little girl from a campground home in Indiana and gives her the courage to walk up to the President of the United States and discuss educational issues? Well, not surprisingly, it was a teacher. This is Mr. McQueen. Janice said yesterday it took 32 years for her to hear from a previous student. It took me 22 to thank Mr. McQueen for the difference he made in my life. Interestingly enough, Mr. McQueen was a high school speech teacher. And you can imagine for someone who is as painfully shy as I am, and yes, I still am, this is Mr. McQueen's training. Believe me. How scary speech class was for me. But you know what? Mr. McQueen was different from other teachers because he didn't just care about me, he believed in me. And there is a difference. A lot of teachers care, but do they truly believe that the students sitting in front of them can accomplish the goals that we're asking them to accomplish? Mr. McQueen believed I could do it. And here's what he did. He developed a relationship with me first, and then he used that information to know how to motivate and differentiate his instruction to personalize my learning. We're going to talk more about this during my session. Ben did a wonderful job of telling us about the triangle of dance. Here's another triangle for motivating and differentiating, and I'd like to suggest that it's based on potential, purpose, and passion. Because what Mr. McQueen did is he pointed out potential that I couldn't even see. He awakened a passion, helped me understand I wanted to be a teacher. And then he identified the purpose because he said, Melanie, if you're going to be a teacher, you need to learn how to speak in front of people. And so I had a real world purpose for learning. But I want you to look at that arrow there that's pointing to potential. Because when he differentiated, he adapted to my potential, not just my skill level. And there's an important difference there. Because you see, when we lower the bar, just like Erica talked about this morning, we're doing our students a disservice because it's not the teacher that sets the bar, it's life that sets the bar. And Mr. McQueen kept that bar high. I tried to talk him into writing me an IEP. I said, Mr. McQueen, my shyness could be considered a disability, and maybe we ought to write this document that says Melanie only has to deliver her speeches in front of Mr. McQueen. I offered a solution, right? But he didn't go for that. He said, Melanie, you're using your shyness as an excuse for not recognizing your true potential. And he taught me the quote that's still hanging in my classroom today. You can't change your past, but you can change your future. And so he gave me the skills that I still have to use every time I walk into a social situation to be sure that I can communicate with people in the way that's expected. We do the same thing with our students. I'd like to introduce you to Joe. I greet my students at the door every day with a high five or a handshake. First day of school, Joe walks in with his long hair and his sagging pants. And here was his greeting. Lady, I don't know who you think you are, but I want to be in this stupid class and you're not going to make me read anything. Now, I had a choice to make at that moment. I was either going to focus on the problem or I was going to dig deep and I was going to find potential. I chose to find potential, and it wasn't that hard. Because several days later, I saw Joe in the back of the room helping one of our special needs students. And I went over to Joe and I said, you know what, Joe? You have an unfair advantage over me. He said, what are you talking about, Mrs. Park? I said, you've struggled with reading your whole life. You can explain things to Anthony in a way that I can't. Don't look at it as a disadvantage, Joe. That's an unfair advantage to help other people. And all of a sudden, Joe had a purpose and a passion for helping others. I buddied him up with a first grader in the neighboring elementary school because I knew about what reading level Joe was at. And all of a sudden, he had a desire to be able to read because he knew he had to read those stories to his little buddy. And little by little, we got more challenging, kept raising the bar. And I want you to know that by the time he went to the high school, he had the highest grade in my class, had read the most books, and he was reading at grade level. Help those students find their potential, their purpose, and their passion. And can we do the same for our teachers? Yes. Sometimes you have to help us identify our potential, because I don't know if you've noticed, but we tend to be perfectionists. And sometimes it's hard for us to see that potential. I love this quote by Zig Ziglar. A lot of people have gone farther than they thought they could because someone else thought they could. For me, Mr. Crago has done that. He's seen potential that I didn't know I had. You can be that someone else for your students, for your teachers, for the administrators in your district, to help them understand how far they can actually go. So we relate, we motivate, and we differentiate, but we can't forget to celebrate. It's on the fuel cell because that fuels our passion. Michelle Shearer was the 2011 National Teacher of the Year. She went to Singapore. In Singapore, they call their teachers gems, precious, valuable gems. I love that because you know what? When students walk into my classroom at the beginning of the year, daring me to make them read, and by the end of the year, they're not only reading, but they're sharing their books with their friends. That moment is magical, and you cannot put a price tag on that moment. So let's ask ourselves, do we remind educators on a regular basis that their value is immeasurable? Do we thank them for their willingness to invest in people, not possessions? And do we honor and empower them by giving them a voice? Do we show them their value? And don't underestimate the importance of those of you who inspire teachers, because you know what happens? You shine that inspiration into a teacher, and all of that inspiration reflects and refracts. You know what that teacher does? That teacher inspires students. And pretty soon we have an entire world full of people that are recognizing their passion and their purpose. So please never underestimate the power of your impact. I'm going to close with a final story that illustrates this. This is my stepfather, David Goldberg. He was raised in a foster home in Canada, and he dropped out of school when he was in 8th grade because he saw no purpose. Little did he know that many years later, his stepdaughter, Melanie, would be sitting next to him on the couch because we didn't have a lot of money and mom had to work 3rd shift. So he was in charge of the evening activities. And I took this book up to him. And I know it was this one because it was my favorite. I said, Daddy, Mommy always reads me a bedtime story. Will you read this to me? And I'll never forget what it felt like to sit next to him and watch the tears run down his face because he could not read the words. That's where my passion for teaching was born. We lost my stepdad to cancer when he was only 47. I was a sophomore in college. During some of our final moments together, he took me aside and he said, Melanie, do me a favor. Don't you dare let any of your students leave your classroom until you are sure they can read bedtime stories to their kids. And that's what I have the honor of doing every single day for my students. Please never underestimate the power of your impact. You're not just educating this generation, you're educating every generation that follows. And how good it feels to sit grounded in mission control. Look up at those students who are soaring high and say, mission accomplished. Thank you so much.